good afternoon, fellow constitutionalists. In today's video, we're going to talk about repealing the Second Amendment and why it will not work. Now, after the recent school shootings down in Parkland and Maryland and the attack on the YouTube headquarters, the gun control drumbeat is getting louder and louder. Along with the gun control rhetoric, folks are chanting, repeal the Second Amendment. From retired Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens to the Louisiana State DNC, and liberals all over the country are looking at the possibility of repealing the Second Amendment. They're making one big mistake. And that mistake is the federal government is in subjection to the states on this issue, as the states are subservient to the sovereign people of the several states. The Bill of Rights of the United States Constitution does not grant rights. It only protects them. We, the people, had these rights before the federal government was formed. And the same goes for the several states. That the sovereign people of the several states had natural rights before they were formed. Those natural rights include the ability to defend ourselves. Americans need to do a better job of teaching basic Republican forms of government, which includes the pecking order in politics and where rights come from. And this, folks, is so very important in what we're going to be talking about today as far as the Second Amendment and the Second Amendment rights. Now, I think one of the sticking points that people have when it comes to the Second Amendment is these last few words here. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, I've had liberals tell me that, well, you got to read the whole Second Amendment, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to read the whole Second Amendment, okay? And the Second Amendment is a well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That is the whole of the Second Amendment. Nowhere, and I've had people say, well, it says a well-regulated militia. That means the federal government can regulate this right. No, it doesn't. No, in no way, shape, or form does anything in that Second Amendment grant the federal government sovereignty over that as far as enumerated powers, like Article 1, Section 8, lays out the enumerated powers of the federal government. There's nothing in the enumerated powers that grants the federal government to do any regulations over the Second Amendment. We have been fooled and we have been hoodwinked throughout our history about the Second Amendment. That it's in there, it's in the Constitution. The federal government can regulate it. It cannot because there's not an enumerated power in the Constitution. Then we have to go back to the 9th and 10th Amendment, which I didn't put up here. But the 9th and 10th Amendment said the powers not granted to the federal government are reserved to the states or the people of the several states. We see nothing in the federal government's Constitution, which the states created the federal government, and this is where I go to the pecking order. It's the sovereign people of the United States first, then the several states, and then the federal government is least of all as far as power and scope. We have this all backwards today in our society. Now, every state that I've been checking has something in their state constitution that talks about the right to keep and bear arms. And I have an article here that I'm going to get into here. It's titled "The Right to Bear Arms in the First State Bills of Rights: Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Vermont, and Massachusetts." When Pennsylvania adopted the first right to bear arms guarantee in the newly independent states in 1776, it did not do so in a vacuum. That it was an established right under common law or natural law seems to be suggested by Commonwealth v. Ray. That was a lawsuit, which declared void a Philadelphia ordinance prohibiting the unlicensed carrying of a firearm on public property. The Pennsylvania Superior Court invalidated the city ordinance on the following grounds. And we're going to get into that a little bit here. But I want to read to you the two sections in the Pennsylvania Bill of Rights or in the Constitution. The right of the citizens of Pennsylvania to bear arms in defense of themselves. Article 1, Section 1. All men are born equally free and independent and have certain inherent and indefeasible rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life and liberty, of acquiring, possessing, and protecting property and reputation, and of pursuing their own happiness. Also in Article 1, Section 21, the right of the citizens to bear arms in defense of themselves and the state shall not be questioned. So it shall not be questioned, folks. Now, the right of the citizens of Pennsylvania to bear arms in defense of themselves, their property, and the state predates any constitution of the Commonwealth and has been embodied in every constitution we have had and is in Article 1 and Article 1, Section 1 and in Section 21 of the present Constitution of Pennsylvania as follows. Now, I just read what just follows in Article 1, Section 1 and Article 1, Section 21. That's in the Pennsylvania state law, okay? Now, let me get into the Commonwealth, and this is not a comprehensive understanding of Commonwealth v. Ray. If you go to the danclementshow.com, not the show notes page, excuse me, if you just go to the notes down below here, I'll have links to all these articles in the video down here below. But the Commonwealth v. Ray is basically this. The city ordinance at issue in Ray prohibited the unlicensed carrying of firearms in public places during an emergency unless actively engaged in defense of life or property. The lower court had declared the requirement of a license to carry firearms void because it did not contain as an exception to the right of a citizen to bear arms in defense of himself or his property. The Superior Court, reversing in part, found that the right to bear arms is a constitutional one and cannot be dismissed or diminished by any act of the legislature. If it was included, it would be mere surplusage, for it is presumed that all acts of the legislature are subject to the clear mandate of the Constitution. The same Philadelphia ordinance regulated the purchase of firearms, and this was also attacked in federal court on Second Amendment grounds. The district court dismissed, and the third court affirmed. Appellant argued that by the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, he is entitled to bear arms. The court, however, said that appellant is completely wrong about that. It must be remembered that the right to keep and bear arms is not a right given by the United States Constitution. While construing the federal guarantee narrowly, the court concluded that the ordinance was void under the state law in view of the decision in Commonwealth v. Ray. So basically what they were telling folks in this is that it doesn't matter what the Second Amendment says. It does really matter what it says, but it is subservient to the state. Now remember, the states were formed in 1776. The 13 colonies became the 13 states. They came together in Philadelphia and to rewrite or try to fix the Articles of Confederation. Well, they couldn't do it. And so they got permission from their several states to do up a constitution, to rewrite things, put forward a constitution that we could all live with. And that's exactly what they did. And some states were not going to ratify the Constitution unless there was a Bill of Rights to protect our rights we already had. So if the states create the federal government, who, as far as pecking order, who's above the federal government? Unless it's an enumerated power that the states gave to the federal government, it's the states that are over the federal government. This federal government does not have supremacy in every little thing. Only supremacy in the enumerated powers granted to them in Article 1, Section 8. Then the states, having this in mind, this is something you got to think about, folks. I know a lot of people don't think about this. If they did repeal the Second Amendment protections, not the rights we have, but if they repealed the Second Amendment protections, and let me get that back up here for you again. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the securing of a free state. They're talking about the several states here, okay? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. If they repeal the Second Amendment and we get rid of the federal protection on a national level, that does not do away with the state protections for us and our firearms. And again, let me read this one more time, especially the Article 1, Section 21, the right of the citizens to bear arms in defense of themselves and the state shall not be questioned. That means in their minds, there's no question about this. It shall not be questioned. And what are they doing with this right of self-defense? All men are born equally, free and independent, and have certain inherent and indefeasible rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life, liberty, and acquiring, possessing and protecting property and reputation, and pursuing their own happiness. So if it did somehow, we got stupid enough as a nation to repeal the Second Amendment, the state constitutions are superior to the federal protections of our right to defend ourselves because the states form the federal government. There's nothing in the enumerated powers. I know I'm repeating myself, but I got to drive this point home. I have to drive this point home. And even the states, Pennsylvania being one of them, recognized that we had these rights before the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania was formed, that we had them in common law, natural rights. Get a little John Locke-ian here, but that's exactly what we're talking about. We had these prior to the formation of the states. So whenever you hear somebody talk about going into the going and ending the Second Amendment, repealing the Second Amendment, and wanting to do that, remember that the federal government, one, doesn't have any enumerated power to govern over the Second Amendment, so any laws that they've made over the Second Amendment over the last 200 plus years should be null and void, and that's going to drive the liberals nuts when you bring that reasoning to them. Two, our state legislatures, and I live in Pennsylvania, so I'm going to deal with Pennsylvania, has it in our Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, and Article 1, Section 21. Especially Article 1, Section 21, the right of the citizens to bear arms in defense of themselves and the state shall not be questioned. No questions. None at all. Okay? We have that, and then according to Commonwealth v. Ray and some of the arguments in there, we had the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania recognized that we had these natural rights, or this common law, natural rights, this Lockean idea, before the states were even formed. And in America, in our republic, again, we're not a democracy, we are a republic, the sovereign people of the several states first, the several states, and then the federal government. And that means the sovereign people over both the state and the federal government. Again, today we have this all backwards. And we need to do a better job of teaching folks. Now, I have a bunch of articles, real quick here when I finish up the show here. I have a bunch of articles in here that will be linked down below in the description here. And these are something very important you need to read. One, I have what I was citing from. It's from gunsight.com, the rights of bear arms in the first state Bill of Rights. I have a video, very good video you need to go watch. It's too long to show on here. Black gun owner shocks local government. I am the majority. It's a Facebook video, really good. He's really passionate about this. Second Amendment, individual gun rights have strong historical support by David Harsani of the National Review. Also have an opinion piece in the New York Times about John Paul Stevens, repeal the Second Amendment. That guy just needs to go away completely. He doesn't get it right. I'm sorry, he just doesn't. Advocating for the repeal of the Second Amendment is a gift the NRA doesn't deserve, and this is by Michael Waldman over at the LA Times. And it is. It's a really good gift to the NRA, plus it's also a really good gift to anybody that isn't a Democrat or progressive in this country, because if they keep talking about it and they keep pushing it right up into the midterms, this blue wave that everybody's talking about, this blue wave is going to fizzle out real quick. I mean, real quick. And we need to keep this in front of the American people, that this is what progressives, liberals, Democrats want to do in this country to our right to keep and bear arms. That is not granted by the government. Remember that. And then I have this article here about the Louisiana Democrat Party chair suggests repealing the Second Amendment. And that's over to freebeacon.com, the Washington Free Beacon. So thank you for listening to the video. If you like it, please like it. If you would please share it on your social medias for me. Word of mouth is very, very important to getting these videos out because of the way YouTube's acting today and some other things that are happening with social media today. Support the show. I have a Patreon and a PayPal account that can both be accessed. The links will be in the notes down below. And if you could, please subscribe. And when you subscribe, please hit the bell so you get notifications when I put up these videos. I'm trying to get more videos out each week, and I'm getting, my fibromyalgia is getting a lot better. So please like, share, support, and subscribe to the Dan Clement Show. Have a great rest of the day, and God bless, and we'll see you in the next video.